All right. Well, welcome to week 3. I can't believe we're already halfway through. I feel like time is always moving so quickly these days. So today we'll be covering cash flow projections. And then, like I said, all of the folks that responded with feedback about what else you would like to cover today, because cash flow projections won't take us the whole time. Um, Everyone was really interested to learn more about how your sales and your marketing efforts should be actually rooted and like directly connected to the budget for the business. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And um, I'm going to show you some examples of like how we use cash flow projections to influence the marketing that we choose for the business and how like we should be able to track that stuff really with a decent amount of accuracy. And I think most of us don't do that. I know I didn't for years. And so it's like it's not a magic fix. It doesn't just like all of a sudden make the money flow in, but it sure as heck is a hell of a lot more efficient than us just kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall with our marketing and hoping that sales come in, which I know has been a strong through line of my business in the past. So today we'll do a little check-in, answer. I'm sure some folks have some questions about the business budget and like your homework that you were working on this past week. So we'll make some space for that. And then we will pull up our budgets and do a little bit of forecasting, a little projecting. For most of us, I would love for you to try to project what you can expect for the rest of this year. So for October, November, December for Q4. If you're not familiar with those terms, there's like in business, there's Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and those are each 3-month periods of time. So we're like approaching Q4. And so we can do a little bit of projecting for that. And then for some of you, you might be able to project Q1 as well of next year. I know I'm booking work into Q1 right now and looking at what that's going to look like. And then we'll talk about linking those projections to income goals. We'll look at marketing plans that come from those numbers. And then we've got a couple workshops coming up, so I just want to make sure you know about those. And then we'll talk just very briefly, setting us up for next week. Our final session will be about paying yourself. And so I'll just talk a little bit about that. All right. So I'd love to hear, feel free to unmute yourself. If you'd rather type in the chat, that's fine too. But just checking in, like what's something you learned or noticed about money this past week? Whether it's in the business budget or your personal budget or just reflections in general. And also if you have specific questions that were coming up around, like how to use the budget or what to do with it this week, feel free to ask those questions too.
Okay, I'll be brave and jump in.
I was
One
like,
thing
did
that
no
I
one learn
learned,
nothing? Come on, guys.
uh, so I was one of the people that was like, oh no, I still have more accounts left to connect to YNAB. And so I started doing that and I
Hmm.
learned I was like, okay, for the way that my brain works, it's too many places. This needs to be consolidated a bit because
Hmm.
I can't keep all of these different pieces in my brain. And I know YNAB means that I don't have to, but like the aversion to logging in when there are so many things on the screen got so strong for me. So, like, learned that about myself and the money.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, totally. Hobbs shared in the chat that you're still thinking about the first week's philosophy on not caring about debt. Yeah, totally. And how that hits a little different for you right now. Kim, you said I learned I have more expenses than I thought. Yes. Software, apps, etc. Also, you had a question, can I claim the household internet on your business? Yes, you can. You can claim a portion of it. Um, do you use an accountant, Kim? Your accountant will know exactly how much, but we can also ask the internet.
My accountant says it's half.
There you go. Oh, hold on. Let me let humans in. There we go. Joe, you said I like going through this because it helps me create more awareness of things. The budget sheet you sent is cleaner than the one you were using. Yep, totally. Um, I know one individual, and I'll try to make some space for this too, asked about, they emailed me asking about like just like how to find an affordable an accountant, and like if you need an attorney for some of this stuff, like how to find that. I can try and send some resources out for that too. It's very state specific, but I can try and share some resources around that as well. Um, Aaron, you said I've been referencing my personal budget frequently and making spending decisions based upon it. Annoying to do, but it's very helpful. And now I know what I can and cannot do in the moment. Yeah, absolutely. Susie, half of it is half of your internet. Someone asked, like, how much of your internet can you claim as an expense for the business if you're working from home? And Joe was sharing that it's half of it.
Thanks.
Yeah, you bet. Ryan, you said, I think I'm in a place of digesting everything that has come before, maybe a place of minor indigestion, since I haven't had as much time and space as I would like to really integrate it. Yeah, but looking forward to the next half of the course. Joe, you asked about profit first. Yeah, do you want to share a little? Do you want to define profit first for us?
So the way it was taught to me, it's like essentially like paying yourself first. So
Hmm.
you're just gonna put that aside. So
Yep.
whatever it is, it could be $10 a month.
Yep.
That would be like you're making sure that that's like an expense, but then at the end you're
Hmm.
just saving for it. So that's kind of how I use it and understand it.
Yeah, totally. That's a
But I'm
great.
just curious, sort of how
Yeah,
that
we'll dig into that
sort
a
of
little
fits
bit.
into
Yeah, we'll
what
dig
we're
into
trying to
that a
create
little
here.
bit next week around like how do we I find for most business owners, and like feel free to give us like a quick show of hands or let us know in the chat, but for most folks for quite a while they operate basically off of like frenetic owner draws. And so it's like whenever I think I can pay myself, I just like pull some amount of money from the business checking, but I don't really have any rhyme or reason for how much it is and how often it is. Um, yeah, totally. So that's how like I would say the vast majority of business owners start, which makes total sense. And then unfortunately, I think a lot of business owners get stuck there for a while. And when I'm working with folks one on one, and we'll talk about it next week more specifically, is like to your point, Joe, I don't care if you're paying yourself $5 a month, but there has to be some automatic withdrawal that is happening at a regular cadence that we can depend on. And it really isn't about the quantity of that withdrawal. It's about the behavioral pattern being set up that we are paying ourselves and that we are not an afterthought in the business, right? And I think it's like in many ways an act of self-care that I'm like, yes, I'm working on making sure I'm providing this service or this product or this good to lots of people, but I'm also making sure that like I get taken care of too, right? And so it's not an either or, it's like both of us get to win. And so we'll approach that a little bit. We'll definitely dive into that more next week of like figuring out there's actually a super simple equation that helps us figure out how much that dollar amount is that you can afford to pay yourself. Either I pay myself biweekly, but if monthly feels more comfortable, we can start there. And then I think the trickiest part is like figuring out when can I give myself a raise? Because for most of us, we don't have like that's the trade-off, right? Of like working for yourself is like there's no guaranteed paycheck coming down the line. But like hint, hint, there's also not a guaranteed paycheck if you work for other people because they can fire you whenever they want to. Uh, but there is that like false sense of security, right, in a 9 to 5 that you're like, oh, I can plan for things because I know that a paycheck is coming every 2 weeks. And so this was something I struggled with for years, honestly, of like, I got to a place where I started to hoard money in my bank account, in my business account, because I was too scared to give myself a raise. Because I was like, what if all of a sudden it stops? What if all of a sudden I stop making money and then I've like spent all the money and then there's nothing? But that's where like the business budget should start to be able to give us a little bit of confidence of like, oh no, I did that last year. I did it again this year. The likelihood of this happening again next year is much higher than just like, ugh, like I have some data to back that like I might, yeah, Izzy. I used to be, I think of myself as like one of those little, like a dragon or a troll under the bridge. I'm like hoarding my gold. I'm like, no, I'm not going to spend any of it. I'm just going to hold on to it. My partner was like, are you going to pay us? We need money. I was like, I don't know. That sounds really, really scary to pay myself. So, yeah, we'll definitely dig into that a little bit more. And we should be able to project with relative accuracy how much money is coming in, how much money is going out, how much we can afford to pay ourselves. And what I like about that model is like, if I can see, I'm like pretty inspired to be able to give myself a raise. Like once I started paying myself, maybe I was paying myself $300 a month. I'm like, ooh, I bet I could get to 500. Like, what would that be like, And so like I get to like kind of plan some goals for myself versus being like, maybe I could pay myself this month. I don't know. Okay, fine. Let's just like pull 2000 out and like wing it. Can kind of get us into some trouble quickly. It's gotten me in trouble, which is fine. We can dig ourselves out when we mess up too. Okay. Any other reflections, thoughts that came up for you this past week? Things you want to share with the group?
One question I had with like
Yeah, Molly.
looking at the budget when I
Hmm.
was trying to like put in some expenses, like how do we do like COGS with that? Because it's like I have to buy
Mm,
in bulk and then I have like the
hmm.
sales coming. And so I was getting a little caught up with that. And I used to
Yeah,
work for a company where I used QuickBooks and it has all that stuff.
yeah, yeah.
But to like do something that's not as expensive as QuickBooks, I wasn't sure.
Sure. Yeah. Molly, can you tell me what you sell? Can you remind us?
I do like herbal teas and products and then baked goods, gluten-free, vegan baked goods.
Right. Nice. Okay. Let me find, like, where's my COGS spreadsheet? So for folks that are, how many other folks are also have cost of goods? Other folks? Yeah. Cool. Okay. So I'm gonna find it. I don't want to make you sit here watching me find it. I made like a cost of goods spreadsheet. And so basically what I would do, and like cost of goods, the reason we don't bite off cost of goods here is because I usually teach that over like its own 4 weeks because cost of goods is hard. It's like a lot of factors to pull in, and it's a lot of like digging for information. All worthwhile, and like you should only have to do it maybe even once if, and then like have small updates as time goes on. So I think it's absolutely worth the time and effort. But ideally, what you would do, Molly, is do a separate COGS spreadsheet to figure out your cost of goods. And then I would probably bulk that cost of goods into the spreadsheet we're using. Does that make sense? So I would like pull whatever the total dollar amount for cost of goods is, and I would bring that total over to the spreadsheet we're using. And so what I can do is I'll make sure to make a note to send that out um in the that spreadsheet out in the email recap. Flami, go for it.
Yeah, hey everybody. So I'm visiting my mom in Hampton, Virginia, and I decided to ask her to lend me a little bit of money, right? Not a
Yeah.
lot, but I said, Ma, I did this thing where my mortgage allowed me to have 3 months deferred, and then I have to pay all 3 months along with the fourth month. I said, and
Mm,
things are going well. We signed 7 contracts in the
good.
last 2 weeks, but it takes a minute for the money to come in, and so I'm going to pay
Sure.
you right back. So she said, sure, and then she added 500 and said I could keep that. And then my daughter's doing a fundraiser for popcorn for one of
Hmm.
my grandsons. And I go online as soon as the money transfers. I buy some popcorn. My mom says this is the popcorn she wants. I go pay for it. And my point is, I cannot wait to get YNAB in my life and have a true budget because the
Yeah.
minute I have cash on hand, I
Yeah.
spend
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
these habits are so hard to break.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, Palami. I
And
appreciate it. Yeah. It's,
I'm
I
cleaning out
find,
her fridge. That's why my camera's
oh no, I love
down.
that. You're so kind.
Okay.
Thank you for doing that for her. I we all, that brings us back to like week one, right? With our money stories. It's like we all have these ingrained habits. And so like for some of us, we're those squirrels where we're like storing away the acorns and we're like, I'm not gonna spend any money. And it's like to a deficit, right? Like we need to actually spend some money. There's that old adage, you got to spend money to make money, right? Like, and so it's okay for us to be spending some money. We need to like, and especially if spending that money is going to increase our quality of life or like allow us to be more generous or whatever it is, right? And then for others, it's like we got to actually slow our roll down and look at like what we're spending the money on, and does that make sense right now? And like, should I be spending my money on that? Is that really like where I want to be? Yeah, is that where I want to be putting my resources? And so I think it's all of us are on this track together, right? We're all on this learning journey and we're going to approach it from slightly different ways. But the root is the same, right? We all would like to have a better understanding of what we can and cannot do with our budgets at this moment in time. And I really do like to think of it as like it's not restrictive. It's more like I don't know. I keep coming back to this feeling of like, I really want to be the best version of myself because like I only kind of get one life in this version of me in this body. And like, I want the best version of it. Like, I want to be able to do the most good. I want to feel the best I can feel. I want to set my kids up for the best success I can. And so like, that's on me. That responsibility is on me to like do the things I need to do to make that happen. And I'm like worthy of that. I'm deserving of that. We all are. And so, it might take a little bit of discomfort and a little bit of work, but I think it's worthwhile in the long run and in the short run. Hopefully, it leads to less anxiety the more we pay attention to this stuff. All right. Um, Thank you for all your shares. I'm like, hold on, I lost my cursor. Did I jump too fast? No. Okay. Let me pull my chat over here so I can see. Okay, so when we say the word projection, um, I think of like the like projecting, right? Like projecting a video up onto the wall. We're looking forward, we're putting a picture up and we're asking like, is this right? Is this what I want? Is this what I want to be looking at? And so your homework this week is going to be to go back into your budget. And I think what I'll do is actually bounce myself out of here for a sec. Pull this one back up. And so the expenses are actually a little bit easier to project because for a bunch of us, like our expenses, if I look down here, like I have this Patreon membership and I know it's going through the year, right? So I can kind of project that out into Q4. There's some other things that I could play with the idea of. I'm like trying to see if I get another one in here. Like for instance, my software, these are places that are pretty easy to project. Um, if you know that you have a monthly payment, if you know you pay for certain things annually and you know that that payment is coming. I love putting annual payments in projections because like how many times have you been surprised by an annual subscription renewing and you're like, fuck, all of a sudden like $500 is gone from my account and I did not see that coming. So it's helpful if we can, usually I try in January to even just like look at my bank account statements from the last year and I'm like, where were all my annual renewals? And put them in the projection so that I can see when that's coming and I'm not super blindsided by that. So the expenses will be maybe a little bit easier for you to project for this next quarter. And so part of your homework will be to fill those all in. And then we're also going to start to play with some income projections. Oh, yeah, Joe, that's terrible. Oh man. Yeah, it's like it's painful when you're like when you don't know things are coming and we'll talk a little bit about taxes too here today and just like how do I know what the expenses are down the road? Um the more we know, the more we can be in control of that and then the less anxious we have to feel and the less reactive we have to be. But our other thing is like, can we start to project some income sources? So, for instance, I have folks that pay monthly to work with me versus folks that paid in full. And so I could start filling in, I have some folks that are going to run through October, November, December with a monthly payment. So I can start to put those numbers in and I can see how much like retainer client money do I already have set up. And that'll start to influence how much I need to make. But I can also start to play a little bit with like, if I'm looking at my income streams, I'm like, what else might I want to do? Right. And so, like, for instance, this workshop series that we're doing this month, just on donations alone, y'all donated $1,000 for this series to run, which surprised the hell out of me, to be honest. Like, I did not know that that was going to happen. And super grateful. Thank you. But that got me thinking, I'm like, maybe I want to, like, I love doing these series. It's like the most fun for me. And so I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. If this is fun and I can make some money doing it, it's not a huge amount of money, but it's some money. Like, I'm not going to shy away from $1,000. And so, like, what would that look like for me to consider putting together another series in Q4, right? Right? Run a series every month. Yeah, I'm in. I'm like, if I could run a series every single month year round, I would be so happy. I like that would just fill my cup. Um, and you guys are sweet. Thank you. So that's something, we can sometimes we have something new in the income source that we're like, huh, I tried that. For instance, like this was a W-2 position. This was the last month. This was when I quit. And so obviously, like that's not going to carry over, right, into 2026's budget. And like, how do I want to rectify that, right? I used to be getting paid $1,600 a month from those folks, and I'm not going, and I haven't obviously all this year, but it's not going to happen again. Do I want to do I want to play with that? Do I want to project something else coming up in the future, right? So, any questions on kind of what I mean by like projecting in the budget? Does that all make sense in terms of your homework, how you're going to do that this week? Show of hands, who's like, I have absolutely nothing to put in the income projections. You're like, I have no idea if any money is coming. Is anyone feeling that way? Yeah, Kim. Yep. Charlene. Yeah, totally. That's not weird by any means. Like that's super, super normal. I just want to like validate that there's been many years in my business where I'm like, I have absolutely nothing lined up. I have no idea what I'm doing. That's super normal and it's just a phase of business. And so, yeah, great question, Fritz and Hobbs. Like, how far out do you typically plan for this? As far as you can, right? And so you're trying to project as far as you possibly can. I would start with just one quarter out. See, like, can I project the next quarter and see what that looks like? And by quarter, I mean 3 months, right? And then eventually, some of you, depending on your business structure, some of you will be able to start to plan 6 months out. Some of you might be able to plan annually, right? If you've got like contracts that are year-long contracts that are going to run, you might be able to start to plan that out pretty far in advance too. I've started to train. So, like for instance, I actually have a new income stream that we don't have in here. Um, so I have these new folks, the Hannah Grimes Center. That's like with two of the workshops that I'm teaching this fall are with. And I've gotten to a place where I've started to train the people I partner with for workshops to push their calendar out a full 3 months ahead of what they were doing. Because I was like, y'all are like, they would be like, they would approach me in September asking about an October workshop. And I'm like, you are 3 months behind the ball, right? Like you need to start projecting, right? Like you need to start planning ahead. And so you can start to like, that's helpful for me because I'm like, I have workshops now lined up through May of next year, right? Because I've pushed them to start thinking further into the future and looking at their budgets further out. Um, Megan, you said, I think the world needs more of your perspective in getting the word out about your series. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Um, yeah, so I think I'm like, let me back up. Let's come back to the deck. Okay, so this will be your main homework this week is putting in your projections, both expenses and income. I'm sure that many of you maybe let us all know in the chat so that all of you don't feel alone, but I'm sure that many of you are still even working on week one's homework, if not week two's. So just know that I know we move at kind of a steady clip here, but this isn't necessarily meant to be like, you have to get everything done by the day that we're meeting. This is going to be a bit of a work in progress, but I want you to just start thinking about what does the next 3 months look like, right? For some of you, show of hands, who has like their highest sales during the holiday season? Is anyone big holiday folks? Susie? Yep. Aaron? Yep. Yeah. So for folks that are like, this is your time to shine, this is your time to sell, like we want to have some pretty clear financial projections if we can for those 3 months of like, what are you expecting? And even if you don't like the thing about sales projections is it's not like a you did it or you failed. It's just like think of it more as like a scientific experiment. It's like I put together a hypothesis. I'm now going to go into Q4 testing that hypothesis. And then I have data on the other side deciding whether or not my hypothesis was correct. Right? It's not about like, oh, I sucked, I failed, I didn't do it, or yay, I did it, I'm amazing, I'm such a good human. It's more like try to remove the emotion from it a little bit and the morality from it. It's more about like, was the strategy I put in place practical or accurate? You know, I had a client the other day that was like, brought her sales projections to the call, and it was super hard. I had to be like, girl, I don't think these are accurate. Like, I don't think you can do this. I don't think that what you've projected is within your reach based on what you have right now. And that's hard, like that's hard to hear, but I would rather know that information that like I'd set my sights a little too high than like go after it and feel like shit on the other side because I didn't hit it. So like we're looking for a realm of realistic, but also like inspirational and fun, right? Like we want it to feel exciting. It shouldn't feel too low that you're like every time you're hitting it or you're going past it, if you're going past your sales projections, every single projection, our projections aren't accurate, right? Like they should be a little bit bigger. Eileen, you said our performance gigs are variable through the year. So we don't, so do we look at last year's to help predict, even though it won't necessarily be the same event opportunities this year? Or do we plan for minimal predictable engagements? Yeah. So what I like to do is like with all my goals, and we'll talk more about this too in the October workshop. It's like a anti-capitalist, like annual strategic planning workshop where we'll look at three different buckets of planning, and financials will be one of those. But what I'm always looking for is a good, better, best. And so I'm like, what would be a good goal to hit? What would be better? And what would be ideal for me to hit? And so if we have those three buckets, then I'm hopefully falling within that range, right? Like I'm hopefully not dropping below good. And if I'm going beyond best, then it's possible I'm have too low of expectations for myself, right? Maybe I need to skew a little bit. But that way it's like it's not a hit or miss. It's like where in those three buckets did you fall? And absolutely, Eileen, I would want to use last year's actuals to predict moving forward, unless there's some reason that those are inaccurate, if that makes sense. Questions there? Okay. All right, so I want to walk you through some real projections of mine to kind of give you an idea of how granular we can get with these numbers and how this isn't I think sometimes, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, I have felt like when I was setting goals for my business, I was just like pulling shit out of my ass. Like I just felt like I was making shit up and it wasn't necessarily based in anything. And when you feel that way, it's hard to like get behind the goals, I think. It can feel hard to like really latch onto them. So I've had a funny, as many of you, I'm sure, if you've been in business long enough, you're going to have some peaks and valleys. I've been doing this for 8 years. And over those 8 years, I've had two children. And so each time I've had a child, I've had like definitely a dip in revenue in the business. And then usually what I can now see, because I have been tracking for years now, what I can now see is that it's year two post baby that I have a big jump in sales. I did not know that that was a trend because I didn't have that many, I don't have more than two children. So it took me going through both children to see that that was a trend that I could track. Obviously, not useful to me now because I'm not going to have more children. But that being said, after the second baby, my 2 years after the second baby, my business doubled. So this past year, my business doubled in revenue. I did not plan for that. I did not really see that that was coming. I was being kind of a little bit lackadaisical with my budget, wasn't really paying attention to it too closely. And I was overpaying myself. And so this is kind of like sometimes we underpay ourselves, sometimes we overpay ourselves. We can get into a nice little pinch there. And I ended up owing $17,000 in taxes last year. And I had not planned on that whatsoever. I thought I had been paying enough in quarterlies, and I still owed another 17,000 on top of what I had paid. That sucked and was super stressful. Like, show of hands, who has a partner who freaks the fuck out about something like that? My partner was like, this was not okay. Like partners that aren't business owners, like it can put a lot of stress on them, like your business can put a lot of stress on them. And so, yeah, Casey's like, I am that partner. And so this was like really tricky. Thankfully, I had not overspent. And so I had that 17,000 in a savings account in my business, but pulling it all at once, like basically drained the savings account, right? And the fun thing about taxes is it's like by the time you realize what you owe, you're already 4 or 5 months into owing for this current year, right? Like, so you're already, so like I had the 17,000 for last year, but now I'm already 5 months behind on this year, right? And so it's like, it can be really tricky. We get into this spot where we're like, talk about debt, right? Like we're spiraling downhill, digging ourselves deeper into debt. And that sucks. That's super scary. And I think like it's very normal if you have these experiences to question like, can I hack this? Can the business survive this? Can I survive this? Like, should I just go get a job? Yada, yada, yada. I refuse to like ever work for anyone ever. So there's no choice. We're gonna make this work. We're gonna move forward. And so I sat down and I had to get real with the budget and think about like what was I going to do. And so I went through a couple things. First of all, I raised my prices. I was like, the pricing is just too low to support the money I need to bring in. I set new monthly client goals. So I started to get really crystal clear about like how many clients do I need to sign every month in order to meet the revenue goals I have. And then I started to get ruthless about packing in that 30% for taxes. I think there was a part of me, I don't know if anyone else has felt this way, that was like, it's not really 30%. Like that's a suggested number. And it's like, no, girl, it's not a suggested number. It's a real 30%. And 30% is a lot. Like that's thousands and thousands of dollars that we're having to pay every month or every quarter to set aside. And I think I was kind of in that mindset of like everything's just gonna work out. And then it didn't. And so I had to get very honest with myself about what that looked like. So I wanted to show you how we can run some of these projections, especially this, I think is, I wish someone had taught me this sooner in my business because we can start to figure out very quickly how much things need to cost in the business, like your services or your products, in order for you to make these budgets make sense. Because sometimes folks will make the budget and then we put in what you're charging for things, and they're like, there's like a $5,000 discrepancy between like what I'm doing and what I said I need to be doing. And that's okay. Like that happens. So we figured that out. And so we've got a couple different tools if we want to create some of these projections. But basically, what I'm looking at is like from my household budget. If my household budget tells me I need to take home 5,000 every single month, right? I then can work backwards to figure out if I'm saving 30% for taxes. And if I know on average my expenses are around $600 a month, right? If I start working my way up the chain here, that means I need to be grossing around $10,000 a month. And if I did that, I would have 1900 left over, quote, left over. A show of hands, who feels like $10,000 is just like an astronomical amount of money to make every month? Yeah, Molly. Like that was hard for me. I was like really resistant to that number. I was like, that's too much money. That's just way too much money. Like how could I ever make that much money? And obviously, like, keep in mind, I've got kids. I live in a place that is not cheap to live, right? So like we all have kind of different situations that we're coming to the table with. So it's not like we all need to be making 10,000 a month. But I think like for some reason in my head, when I said I need to bring home 5,000, it did not compute that really I had to be selling twice what I wanted to bring home. I think in my head, it was like maybe it was 30% more. And so I kept letting it slide that I was making less and still pulling that 5,000. Does that make sense? Does anyone else feel like want to share or feel like they've been in that position where it's like, I just can't believe I would need to make that much? I could be a very unique unicorn. I don't know.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead, Charlene.
That's like I guess I'm on the wrong microphone. Yeah, I just wanted to hop off because I'm kind of going through this right now. I originally signed up for this course for another business, my farming business, but I'm also because of the return to work order in Vermont,
Yeah,
I'm working on developing a different business now that's more service focused.
good.
And so this is really helpful for me right now because I'm really looking at, okay, how much do I need to bring in a month to really replace my state health benefits, right? And
Sure.
so
Yeah, that's huge.
I'm like, okay, well, originally I was just looking at it from a what do I need to bring in to pay my bills, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
to make
Mm-hmm.
up for my current
Yep.
salary.
Yep.
But then I was like, oh crap, I'm gonna have to pay for health insurance for my family now, and
Yeah.
that is gonna be a dramatic expense that I was not even thinking
Yeah.
about. So definitely like it's not just about replacing like a current salary or something like
Yeah.
that. We really
Yeah.
need to dig in and look at what all of those expenses are going to be. And that has to be our number because if it's not, then we're not going to make enough money, even when we
Yeah.
think we might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, Charlene. I had a client yesterday. He was like, and some of us are like in this fine line where, so he's been getting subsidized health insurance, but if he makes over 62K, his entire benefit goes away. It's just like
Yeah.
gone. Right.
Yep.
And he's like, I don't think I'm satisfied with capping my business at 62K. Like
Hmm.
they want to buy, he and his partner want to buy a house one day. Like, it like he has ambitions and goals and things he wants to do. And so like he's like, I don't think it makes sense to try and stay under that 62K. I think I need to like, he's like, but then if I factor in insurance at like $800,000 a month out of
Mhm.
pocket, like now I have to jump the business up to like 100K, And
Yeah.
he's like, and that just seems insane. Right. And
Mhm.
all of this is just like reflections of our deeply flawed, deeply broken system. Like
Oh
this is not
yeah.
you, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's like for some of us, we do need a little bit of a come to Jesus moment of like, what are these numbers and how do we get to them? Right? Like, how do we get to those numbers with the
Yeah.
business structure we have?
Yeah, I was part of a group with a farming cohort, and they we were talking about financial planning and budgeting, and like goals and worries about just farm management. And
Hmm.
one of them was, growing the farm to a point where we can afford health insurance. And then another person chimed in, or staying poor enough to still qualify
Yep.
for Medicaid.
Yep.
And it was just such a real moment of like,
Yep.
yeah, like that's totally valid, but totally screwed up.
Yeah. Yeah. Our health insurance should not be tied to our occupation in any shape or form, right? Like it's just absurd. Um, Fritz and Hobbs, you said that's the part that's hard for me right now. I can make all the scenarios in the world, but how to get the money to flow in, especially when our biz is targeted to exceptional but strategically under-resourced folks who have trouble paying for basic needs already. Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So I'm going to throw one more scenario at you. So this was scenario A is if I sign on 3 clients a month, right? What does it look like if I sign on 4 clients a month? And when I first did this projection, first of all, I balked at the idea of grossing 14K a month. And then the second feeling I had was like, who the fuck needs an extra $4,300 a month? Like, that's just ridiculous. I don't need that extra money. Like, I'm fine. Kind of to Joe's question a week or two ago of like, what's enough, right? Like, how much growth is enough growth? Like, can we be done somewhere along the road? But then, as if the universe knew, a man came knocking on my front door and said, "Hey, we're doing free roof inspections. It looks like your roof is at least 15 years old. Do you know how old your roof is?" And I said, "No, I don't know how old the roof is. We bought the house 5 years ago." And he was like, "It looks pretty old. Like, have you considered what you're gonna do when the roof needs to be replaced?" And I swear to God, it was like all the blood just came out of my face, went down to my feet, and I was like, "I have absolutely no plan for a new roof, sir." I don't even know how much roofs cost. I was like, and I totally spiraled. So this is me taking a picture of my roof that is clearly very old. And so this is where it's like sometimes I know, right, Casey? Casey said, God, what a terrible job. Go do free inspections, possibly ruining someone's day. I know, Joe. Maybe I could try and do my own roof.
Just watch a YouTube
Um,
video.
I'm like, right, I build lots of stuff. I'm sure I could figure this out. So turns out roofs are like anywhere from 25,000 to $75,000. And so, I landed myself somewhere in the middle there. I was like, what would it look like? Like, first of all, I was like, how do humans come up with $50,000? I do not understand that concept. I don't know where that money comes from. And so I was just kind of playing around with like, yeah, right. Like I think you have to take out a home equity loan for many people. Some people don't though. We asked a neighbor the other day, they got a new roof and they were like, "Oh yeah, we had saved for it." And I was like, "How? How did you save for $50,000? I don't understand that's a thing." So apparently it's a thing. And so I was playing with that of just like, what would that look like for me to save $50,000 for a roof for our home? And so if I project for 4 clients a month on average with this 43, and someone asked the question, let me answer it since I'm here. Kim, you said, is your take home in that margin or in your household? What do you mean?
I
Oh,
mean, what you
oh,
pay yourself, what you pay yourself, your
what
paycheck.
I pay myself is the 5,000. Sorry, take home. Another way of saying this would have been net. So like gross 14K comes in, I minus 600 in expenses, I minus 4,000 in taxes. And so what would be left over, the net would be 9,000. I'm going to pay myself 5,000 out of that. And so what's left over would be 4,000. Cool. Um, so that's where that 4,000 goes, right? Is into a savings account for a new roof or for your kids to go to college or for you to start saving for like who has a retirement account? Show of hands. Who is saving for retirement right now? Because God knows there's going to be no fucking Social Security by the time we are older. Let's be honest. Yeah, right. Most of us like don't or are maybe trying really hard. So that's where the money goes, right? Like the money, it's pretty quick to make the money make sense. And I think for some of us, it's like, I'm going to come here, just having a little bit of a gut check around like the reality of the cost of living, right? It's insanely expensive to exist on our planet right this second. I have deep hope that that will change maybe in our lifetime, hopefully in my children's lifetime. Uh, and so, I think my hope is not to depress you or make you feel like this is impossible, but more to like just kind of pull the curtain back and look at like what is this? What are we looking at? What are these budgets? Like what is the point of the budget? The point of the budget is to make it so that when the guy comes knocking on the front door asking about my roof, I can say, "Yeah, I have a plan in place and I'm aware of what this is and what this costs, and to not feel like I'm totally blindsided." All right, I'm coming back to the chat because I know you have some comments. Megan, you said, would you usually allocate margin to household or back to the business, or do you just decide as needed? Yeah, so great question. And we can talk about that too next week a little bit. But ideally, we get to a place where on the back end, we have show of hands, who has a separate business bank account from your personal household bank account? Molly's like, don't look at me. I can see your face, Molly. Cool. Okay, so some of us are there. Great. That's awesome. That's going to be some of your homework leaving next week is to set up a business checking and savings account. And ideally, you do that with a credit union so that your money stays where you live. And eventually, what we want is to get to a place where the money is coming in from all of our income streams into the business checking account. And then from the business checking account, we have an owner draw that we're getting paid into our personal account, right? And that's happening every 2 weeks or once a month, whatever you want, or weekly. And then there's also money that's being funneled into our business savings account. And then some amount of money needs to sit in the business checking account, most likely to cover expenses, right? And so we have an idea of like what expenses are and how much needs to sit in there so that we're not bouncing our checking account, obviously. Great, Megan. I love that. Any questions on that? I'll pause there. We'll dig into that a little bit more next week and how that works. But it's nice. I think it's like there's that old suggestion or advice, business advice. I'm sure Dave Ramsey would tell us we need like 3 months of savings, right? 3 months of your expenses, including paying yourself, saved up in a business savings account, like an emergency fund. That's a lovely idea. I don't know that that is practically achievable for many humans. And so I would say, like, you just start to chip away at it and you start to try and put a little bit away. And the equation we'll look at, we've got like a fun little calculator next week that we'll play with, that we can kind of play with, like, what would it look like to save $50 a month into my savings? What would it look like to put $500 a month into my savings, right? Like, and we can play with that and just see how that would grow over time, and what that would require of us. Like, I hear distress. Okay. Yeah. Fritz and Hobbs, you asked also, is 4 clients a month sustainable? This is such a good question. So, like, what if we build out a scenario and we're like, sweet, I made the numbers work. And then you're like, there's no universe where I could deliver on that, right? And that would just break me to be able to deliver. Thankfully, 4 clients a month is sustainable for me. That over the course of 4 months, that would load me with 16 clients a month, right? If I brought on 4 new clients every month and my container is 4 months long, the maximum I would ever have is 16 clients a month. And I see folks every other week. So that would mean 8 clients a week. And that is manageable for me. That's fine. Um, the question for me is less, is it manageable? And more, how do I find those clients, right? Like, how do I find 4 a month? Because that's a pretty high volume for me. So we'll talk a little bit about that next. I just want to make a note that for many of us, like, quick show of hands or let us know in the chat, who has like seasonal variance? Yeah, so there's like busy times versus slow times. Yeah. So I do too. My summer is much slower than my fall, and like my spring winter tends to be relatively steady. It's not like super busy, but it's steady. And so, if I want to average 10K a month gross, I'm looking at, most likely the summer months are closer to a 5K average. And if we give me my, why are you doing that? There you go. If we look at the numbers here, you can see that like January was much bigger than like July, right? Or August. And so I can like kind of start to plan for that. And September is perking up a bit, right? And so what matters is that I'm seeing the annual average, not necessarily that I'm hitting those numbers every single month. We just want to be mindful of that we're not like beating ourselves up if every single month we're not hitting that same number. Okay, so for those of us that feel comfortable using something like ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever, Claude, we call ChatGPT Chat in our household. And so this is a place where creating these sales projections, that's how I made all of these numbers, is by putting it into ChatGPT and being like, what if I do this? What if I do this? What if I do this? What does this look like? So that can be a pretty quick way to just kind of test. Again, you're really just trying to test your assumptions. You're not trying to like replace your gut instincts on this by any means. But putting in a prompt like this could be really helpful for some of you, just kind of seeing like the different variations. And maybe you want to like, for those of you that are newer to business, maybe what you're looking for more is like stepping stones. So like, what if I did this for the next 6 months and then did this for the next 6 months after that, right? And like kind of working your way up. You might not be able to hit what your household budget is right out the gate. You might need to like take some stepping stones along the way. We can also use it for some more complex projections. And I just show this example. I know there's a lot of numbers here. I just show this example for folks, especially, this might be an appropriate one for Molly, but one for folks that are newer to business and you're just trying to come up with ideas of like, okay, I know I need to make, based on my household budget, I know I need to bring home $3,000 a month. I'm starting from scratch, so none of this stuff is built yet. But these are the things that I know I'm interested in. I'm interested in dried herbs and selling dried herbs and tinctures. I'm interested in doing consultations for folks. I'm interested in leading some workshops. And I have a rough idea of what those things would cost. And so I can ask Chet, like, if my expenses are around this and my taxes are, and I want to save 30% for taxes and I want to hit this 3K a month take home, what do I need to be doing? Right. And so it can spit out a whole bunch of different equations for you of like, you need 15 of these and 25 of these. And if you're like, that, to Fritz and Hobbs's point, like, is that sustainable? And I can't do 15 herbal consultations a month. That's like bananas for me. Okay, that means I need like 40 attendees in a workshop then instead of 25. Or that means I need to, or what does it look like if I did the whole thing just selling dried herbs and tinctures, right? We can start to play with like how I get to 3K. Does that make sense? Totally, Millie. I mean, you can absolutely figure this out without AI. You do not have to use Chat to do this. You just need a calculator and some pen and paper and to like sit down and write it all out. And that's totally fine. There are certain things that like this is all we all get to make our own decision around AI and if and when we want to use it. And this is a place that I am willing to use it because it's just so much faster than me. But there's no need to use it if you don't want to. Absolutely. Yeah, totally. Financial coaches can also replace. Yeah, absolutely. Like talking to a real life human. For some of you, especially if you are at like a credit union, they should have someone on staff that will do this work with you, like in their business department. If they do small business loans, they absolutely have a small business counselor. And you could book a session with them and ask them to help you run financial projections. There's also, if you're in Vermont, Ben Green at the Vermont Community Loan Fund is a fabulous person. He has a grant to just like sit down and run financials with people. And so you don't have to pay for it and he'll help you. He's a super sweet guy. So that's an option too. All right, we're going to pivot into more like marketing sales conversation, but any question leading up to like what we've covered so far?
Can you repeat the name of that person you just said?
Yeah, I'll just put it in the
Financial coach?
chat. Yeah. He's not really a financial coach so much, but basically the Vermont Community Loan Fund is like it's like a bank, but they're not a bank because you can't bank with them, but they loan money. And Ben Green, they have like a bunch of I would guess it's like federal and state funding to be able to offer free financial counseling to folks in Vermont. Your credit union should be able to do this as well. But he's so lovely, and you can tell him I sent you. It's like he's hoping, of course, that you might take out a loan, but you don't have to by any means. He's never gonna like push you to take one out. Oh, good, Joe. What were you freaking out about taxes?
I think I was looking at our like revenue without taking into the account the expenses and what I was being taxed on. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not saving enough at all. Like, oh God,
Oh
we're
God.
screwed. I'm like, this isn't working out. I thought I had this figured out. Like, I was just questioning everything.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Figured it out.
We
We're
figured
good.
it out. Okay, good.
I
Yeah.
took my taxes out, and I was like,
Yeah.
wait a second,
Okay,
this
good.
makes no sense.
Okay, good. Yeah. Taxes just like give me a heart attack every single day. And I think right now, at least for me, it's like it's never been more painful internally to pay taxes. Like knowing where our taxes are going right now is like excruciatingly painful to me to send tax payments. I feel like I am 100% sending my tax payments in protest. Casey, you're estimating 30% on like, so it's, yeah, right. Can we stop? Uh, you're estimating 30% on your gross revenue minus your expenses. So take your gross, then subtract your expenses, and then whatever's left of that, you're saving 30% of that. And our calculator we're going to use next week will factor that in for you too. Cool. All right. So just like we kind of worked backwards with the equation to figure out what the gross revenue was. Oh, yeah, you might be saving more than you need to, which isn't too bad unless you need the money right now, in which case stop doing that and take the money. Um, yeah, sometimes it's nice if we're like saving a little bit extra. And then other times it's like you really just need that money right now. Found money is a great thing. That is correct, Casey. Okay, so in the example back here, we were looking at moving backwards, right? So we went from the budget back to the take home, back to the taxes, back to the expenses, and that brought us to this gross number. It is a similar strategy for our marketing and our sales goals. We're going to start with the budget and we're going to figure out. So, like, we saw those projections of like 3 clients coming on per month versus 4 clients coming per month. We now know if that is my goal to bring on 3 or 4 clients a month, I need to develop some sort of marketing strategy that will reliably deliver those 3 clients per month, right? Like, those 3 clients aren't just going to come from anywhere, right? I got to figure out how I'm going to find those 3 clients. So, for each of us, um, we hopefully at some point in time develop something akin to like, I hate this word. So if you think of a better word when I say this word, please let me know and tell me in the chat. But all of us need some sort of like quote pipeline, right? Like we need some flow from one bucket to another to make those numbers come true, right? So my pipeline, for again, lack of a better word, is workshops. I do a lot of workshops. I do them all over the place. Those workshops usually lead to people getting on my email list. And from my email list, I usually get sales calls, right? And so for all of us, I know, Kim, I hate that word too, though. I don't like funnel or pipeline. I'm like, can we come up with human words, like words that relay that we are actually working with human beings, not like bots out in the universe? A greenhouse. Ooh, a root system. See, I knew you guys would have ideas. A path, a potential best friend club. Okay, I love you guys. This is fun. All right. So my potential best friend club starts with workshops and usually leads to email list growth. And that usually leads to sales calls. At the same time, each of these things in themselves are kind of like levers. I think of like the slot machines in Las Vegas, and you have the different levers that you pull. I mean, I've never actually done this, but I've seen this in a movie, and so I'm thinking of like, what are my levers that I can pull to potentially find new best friends for my best friend club, right? And one of my levers, sometimes it's like I have to pull each lever to get it, like all 3 levers have to be pulled in order to see the results. But also, hopefully, some of those levers can be pulled individually, right? Like sometimes people are going to become a client just based off of an email I send. They don't have to go through a sales call process. Some folks are going to become a client just because they attended a workshop I was in. They don't have to like then join my email list, then join the sales call. For each of these marketing ideas, strategies, plans, paths, whatever we want to call them, there should be some quantifiable. Okay, here's another challenge, friends. Find a new word for conversion, because I also hate that word. There should be some measurable conversion percentage, right? So for every 20 people opt in still reminds me of like lead opt-ins and marketing. Longer term commitments. I like that. That works. For each of these I like commitment. That's nice. for each of these, there should be a measurable amount of commitment, right? And so it's like if I have 20 people come to a workshop, approximately 5% of those people are going to commit. And that equals me one client, right? If I have 20 attendees. If I have 40 attendees, that means I might get two clients out of that workshop. If I have 30 new email subscribers in a month, I could look for 1 to 2 clients signing on. Become friendly acquaintances. I love the friends vibe. We're just friends. If I conduct 5 to 6 sales calls in a month, approximately 3% of, or 3 of those people are going to become a paying client, right? And so ideally, we're doing things, and this is where like I see folks at like in one-on-one coaching relationships, a lot of the time folks have like 10 of these bubbles or 15 of these bubbles. They're like trying a whole bunch of different shit and they don't have any idea what the I'll tell you, Casey. They don't have any idea which of them are working and how well they're working and how long they take to work. And so what we're looking for is, we're trying to find marketing strategies that we can measure the results and that measurement is like pretty reliable. It's pretty consistent over time. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally, Fritz and Hobbs. I can do that. Great question. So, Casey, I'm going to answer your question. Sales calls are like, so for instance, I'll literally show you. There's a few different ways to like grab my attention and talk to me. And so one of those is like in my sales page, right? You can talk with me and you can get on my calendar and we chat for 30 minutes and we talk about your business goals and see if I can help. That's a sales call, right? So like a discovery. Some people like to, they don't like the word sales. And so people call them discovery calls, clarity calls, inquiry calls, and, trying to like find ways to, yeah, to avoid that. But it's a sales call at the end of the day. You're trying to figure out if this person is interested in purchasing your services from you. Okay. So Fritz and Hobbs had a great question. Prospecting is another word for it. Yep, totally follow me. You said, can you break it down even more? How do you get the 20 attendees to the workshop? How do you get the 25 to 30 new subscribers on the email list? Yes, this is a very good question. So I was like, what did we come up with in terms of instead of pipeline? I've already forgotten. I'm like, I think of it, I was actually, the graphic I was trying to create for this slide was a waterfall. And I think of it that way a lot, is like a waterfall that has multiple stepping stones down the waterfall, right? It has like lots of ledges. And it's like each of these buckets should be kind of pouring in to the next bucket and leading us on the way. So if we go further upstream from workshops, like how do we get the people to the workshops? We have a few different options for that, right? If that's like if that's going to be the flow, is workshops to email lists to sales, how do we get folks to the workshop? So one option is, and this is where like email list and workshops they actually more like cycle around each other. As I'm going to email to my list about my workshops, hoping that people show up to it. But then I need new humans to come into my orbit pretty frequently. And I think this is one of the places, like, if you're not hitting the sales goals you want, it's most likely like one of 2 things is happening. Maybe it's 3 things. You don't have enough humans to sell to. And so you've kind of like, you've sold to all the humans you already have and nobody else is going to buy. You need new humans coming in. You have yet to figure out how to sell to the humans you have in a way that is effective for them. Or you simply have a wrong humans. That's a possibility too. Like you kind of attracted not really the right candidates for what you sell. Yeah, great question, Kim. So I'll tie that into this answer. So it used to be that you could organically build email lists and you could organically market. And by organic, I just mean that you're not paying for anything. It's like your own sweat and blood and labor going into it would produce the thing. That used to be the case. Like even 5 years ago, that was a hell of a lot easier. 10 years ago, way, way easier. As the internet continues to become a dumpster fire of advertising, it has become harder and harder for us to organically promote things and for things to organically grow virtually. And so we have some options. It depends on how much growth we need, right? Which brings us back to the budget. It's like, how much do we actually need? Do we need 20 attendees or do we only need five? That's a good question. If some options that have worked for me, Fritz and Hobbs specifically, is like finding partners who have audiences that are similar to mine, but are not in like quote competition with mine, right? So, for instance, if I run a workshop for CWE, like I'm not a competitor to CWE. We do different things, but we have folks that have the similar needs or the same needs. And so I can run a workshop for them, and that hopefully puts me in front of 30 new humans who don't know me and are now joining my email list, right? That's an organic way for me to figure that out. If I have ways of physically showing up in person, I do 2 networking events every month. And so I often at those networking events, one of them allows announcements. And so I will announce my workshops, and there's usually 50 people in that room that are listening, and they're all my ideal candidate, right? And so I'm trying to figure out like where are my humans that I'm interested in becoming friends with? And how do I get myself in front of them? Other people have had success. I've never done this strategy, but other folks, getting on a podcast, getting interviewed in some capacity on a blog post or on a podcast or um, doing a guest appearance in some capacity somewhere. Basically, you're trying to figure out like where are groups of humans that I would like to be friends with, and how do I talk about my stuff in front of them in a way that is meaningful, right? And useful. So, like, I work very, very hard to make sure that anytime I'm offering something to somebody else's audience, it's of great value to them, right? It's not like fluffy and just about me. It's about them and trying to be useful. To Kim's question of like, is your email list organic, or did I purchase any of my list when I was starting? Um, my email list is organic. I built it from scratch. And also, I have used paid ads twice in my 8 years. And so that is the other way to do this is paid advertising. You pay to play, and you're not paying. I mean, I guess you probably can't. I don't, someone else can weigh in on this, but I've never just like blanket paid for emails or like paid for followers. I've never done anything like that, but I've paid, for instance, for this Liberatory Finance. Did anyone come from an ad you received in your stories on Instagram? Some of you had to have. Yeah, because some of you I do not know. That was the first time I've ever done that. So I made a little Instagram graphic. Yep, a sponsored post. Yeah. I made a little Instagram graphic on my stories and I posted it, and then you can like boost the story. I paid $10 a day for 10 days. So I paid $100, and it got me in front of a lot of folks that do not know me, and many of which like signed up. But as you can see, folks that are responding in the chat, a lot of you came from my email list. Others came from like NOFA, for instance, would be like a partnership that I've facilitated, right? It's like someone that I've gotten myself in front of their audience. Those folks are going to be much more engaged, usually, and much more, for lack of a better word, it's like they're going to be a much warmer lead than something coming from an ad. Um, but that can work. Like that can absolutely work. Offering something with sign up for email list helps. We offer a discount if you sign up. Yeah. So the other version of ads that I've experienced was I had like a free download to help you start email marketing. And I put ads behind that. And that brought in like hundreds of new humans onto my email list. That was years ago. Um, and so, I think it's similar with the chat GBT stuff. It's like, are you For some of us, it's like that's a no-go. We're not willing to do that. And I have the utmost respect for it and I totally get it. And it's not something that I would only rely on in terms of my marketing. I want to have other organic strategies going as well. Another one that I've worked on a lot is SEO. So, like when people are searching, am I showing up? Right? Like that's a big one. Yeah, Joe, you're working on that. If you have a physical location, you sure as hell should be doing SEO, in my opinion, because that's like a no-brainer. People are constantly like, where is the closest blah 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 to me, right? And so like if you're not ranking for that, oh, that's why you waved your hand, Joe. Yeah. Yeah. So I've had more and more folks find me just by searching anti-capitalist business coach, anti-capitalist marketing support, stuff like that. And I rank basically number one now for that because I've poured a lot of time and energy into making sure my site performs really well. So that's another one. There's an infinite amount of ways that we can market. The point is to pick like no more than three and to make sure that you can measure them and to make sure that when you crunch the numbers, they make sense. Right. So, like, for instance, let's just say for some reason in this scenario, this like workshops to email to sales calls, let's just say for some reason I needed 15 clients a month. This equation would not make sense, right? Like if I was bringing in one, two, if I was only bringing this can like this quote pipeline, this waterfall, this path can bring in 6 clients at a maximum. If I needed 15, this doesn't make sense, right? Like this isn't going to work for me. I got to come up with something else. So thinking about that, for folks that have really lower ticket items, like if you sell things that are like $5, $15, $25, you're going to need a very large volume of sales in order to meet your budgetary needs, would be my guess. And so we would be looking at a very different waterfall to potential best friendship, right? Than this one. Let me just check on the chat here. Molly, you said at a farmer's market, I asked people if they want to join and hand them a sign up instead of having it just sitting on my table. I love that. Yeah, being a little bit more proactive about it. Um, and sometimes people, yeah, I was gonna say Ryan just said it, but like sometimes people will offer like 5% off or 10% off when you join the email list, like at a farmer's market, things like that. That can be motivational. And the other thing is like making sure. Millie, I prefer Kit. I really don't enjoy MailChimp at all. But if you go to kit.com, that would be my preferred email management if yours is not baked into like your website provider or something like that. I just realized like how close we are to time. Oh, good. I did a very good job. I got through all my stuff. Um, I'll pause there for a second. I'm just going to tell you about these quick announcements and then I'll open up some space we can chat and ask questions. Um, First off, office hours. I run office hours the first Thursday of every month. It's totally free, always free. Sometimes I have a theme. Sometimes we just kind of wing it and just talk about whatever we want. This month, I was thinking about because this question came up for all of you said that this was the topic you wanted to talk about. I thought we would dedicate some time to office hours to really exploring this of like the transition between marketing and sales and like what are all these marketing channels and how do we pick the right one for us? So we can talk about that. Office hours are at 9 a.m. They're actually the same exact time as this. They're 9 to 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. The second one on October 22nd, intentional growth. Basically what we do, what I like to do for a strategic planning is we're looking at like what are all the things you would like to work on over the course of 2026. And we break that down into 4 different buckets. And so there'll be like sales, marketing, your delivery, which is like basically like how you deliver the thing you do. And then the last one will be internal systems. And so that would be around like budgeting, other stuff that's internal that's not really being seen by the outside. And so we look at those 4 buckets and what would you like to work on in each of those over the course of the next year. This is a new workshop that just got put up holiday emails that don't make you cringe. So if you are working hard during the holiday season and you would like to lean maybe a little bit more on email marketing than social media, I'll show you how to write those emails. They'll basically, the emails will take you through November and December and a little bit into January. And then the last one here is how to price your services. And so we'll cover all the different ways of like breaking up pricing. Um, and to Fritz and Hobbs, that's like in terms of like the folks I like to serve don't have any money. What do I do? Like, how do I come up with a pricing model that is like reflective and considerate of that, but also is like making the budget make sense? We'll dive much deeper into that topic. Okay, here's your homework. You're going to fill in your expenses and your confirmed income through the end of the year. Also, feel free to dip into Q1 of 2026. What I do is just make a copy of your budget and then erase the parts that you do not know yet. But keep, for many of you, your expenses will stay moderately the same next year. So you've already filled it in, which is great. And then I'd like you to try running 2 to 3 projections based on your take-home pay. And you can do that on paper. You can do that on chat. You can do that with a friend. You could do it. You can find some sort of financial counselor at your bank. But I want you to just play with a couple scenarios and bring those next week. And then think a little bit about our marketing conversation today and what would you like to work on in terms of marketing? What type of marketing do you think makes sense to hit your sales goals? All right, I'm going to open it up. Questions, things that you're thinking about, anything you want me to go over again, anything you want me to clarify? I can spend more time talking about the marketing stuff if that feels helpful.
I'd like to share something.
Mm-hmm.
I know funneling, I understand why you don't love the word. And I started this notion of like, I know a lot of people that I don't connect with about like hiring us as consultants. And so I just made a list of all the people I know
Totally.
and started doing connecting with 5 people a week. And that's really how I can't say that's how I got to the 7 contracts I signed recently. But several people have now hired us that I've known for years because I never
Mm-hmm.
talked to them like that. So I
Mm-hmm.
am finding just connecting with people about what they're up to and what I'm doing. And that's why I call it prospecting. In those calls, I'm really prospecting. Oh, it sounds like you need a team builder. I'll
Yeah.
say something like that. Are you open to a proposal? And we finally did a pricing sheet.
Yeah.
And what
This
was
is an example, Flami, that I worked on with another client of what you're
wow.
describing. So
Oh my
like,
goodness.
yeah, you can get like, I love
How
me a
did you do this?
spreadsheet. So hopefully y'all know that by now. But for folks that do a lot of consulting work, one of the biggest, I think, like missed opportunities I see is not properly tracking your efforts. Like just not keeping track of like who you've reached out to, what type of person were they, like what services were they interested in? Like you need to be keeping track of that stuff because otherwise you just have no way of measuring whether or not what you're doing is working, you
I
know?
have to be honest, I set this up and click up, but I don't keep it up.
You should. You should
I
put like
really
a
should. This is
15-minute
beautiful.
reminder in your calendar every week to just update your sheet. Like you could even piggyback it with your budget. I think that would make sense too. Yeah. And I think if you can integrate colors, I swear to God, it just makes it more fun. Like make it pretty, make it not super painful. Other questions? I'm a Capricorn. What does that mean? I don't know what that means. I know it's a pretty spreadsheet, right? Well, it was partially like my forcing her to do it because I was like, I can't keep track of what you're doing. Like my brain can't keep track of all the things that you're working on. Yes, aesthetics matter. I like pretty things in my life. Oh, that's great. Ryan said that she made a collaborations doc and that you're using it all the time.
Yeah, now I don't have to have like 20 tabs open of
Yep.
like, oh, I should really like check that person out, or I should email them, or oh, I should like get on their
Mm-hmm.
list or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Or like I had a conversation in a place like a farmer's market or a yoga studio, like, oh, we should do a thing. And then I like get home and don't
Mm-hmm.
remember to follow
Mm-hmm.
up.
Yeah.
So it's
The other one,
amazing.
the other one I use, let's see if I can pull up my I use Asana for this a lot too. And Asana is free if you like. I love digital stuff. Like I'm so much more comfortable digitally than analog. I know for a lot of folks, like they love their notebook or their analog, and that's totally fine. But if you are digital, in terms of like keeping track of clients, like this is how I do it. So I have like all these different columns. So like these are folks that are interested and I've talked to, versus like it has the meeting been scheduled, are they waiting on a grant application, all the way to like I need to send them their Google folder, versus in progress versus like they're done or I need to ask for a Google review or whatever. So like that can be, there's lots of different platforms that can help you do that. But I think it makes sense to keep track of. Yeah, Asana is free. Totally. Yep. That's always been my go-to. And then I have like another page. I can show you. I have this other page here for these are all the things that like I need to get done immediately versus stuff that needs to get done eventually. I have a big curriculum that, and this is kind of like a dumping ground sometimes of like in a perfect world, I would like update this thing with this, and like maybe one day I'll get to it. Um, versus like ideas for marketing. This is helpful. Plus, like when you do, like I did this, when you do these, you click them. Oh, the little unicorn didn't jump. There's like a little unicorn that jumps across the screen a lot of the time. It didn't do it that time, but that's satisfying to me as well. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. A workshop on business operations administration. Yeah, I think it's like, it's so hard because people's businesses are so different, but I would totally be open to doing that. I think it would be fascinating. And I'm a wildly organized individual and I love organizing other people's stuff. I'm like, let's make it make sense. Oh, yes. That would be fun. I would do that. Any other questions for today? How'd we do today? Thumbs up, thumbs middle, thumbs down? Ooh, Hobbs gave me a thumbs up. I'm feeling good. Last time I got a thumbs middle. All right. I know. I mean, I want you to be honest with me, so I'm excited. Cool. I'm glad y'all came today. I'm very grateful for all your contributions and for you being present and engaging. It means a lot, and it makes it a lot more fun. Cool beans. All right. Well, I will send out the email with your replay. And is anyone not receiving my emails? Everyone's getting them? You're good? Okay, cool. One person was like, what the hell? I had no idea there were emails. And they had been going to their promotions tab this whole time. So I just wanted to make sure. Cool. Awesome. All right. I will see you all next week.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Bye.
Thank
you.
you.
Toodaloo.